Today on Mr. Media, I'll talk to actor Kevin Sorbo, best known for his starring roles in Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, and Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda. He's just written an amazing memoir detailing the heartbreaking health struggles he endured at the end of Hercules' 6-year run. The book is titled True Strength. Stick around. You'll gain strength and appreciation for your own good health after hearing Kevin's story. Mr. Media is recorded live before a studio audience of Hercules fanboys who love Kevin Sorbo's show but couldn't spell half the characters' names. In the new media capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida. Reading just the introduction of Kevin Sorbo's autobiography made my head spin, literally. Without getting into too much detail, I had some personal health issues myself about a dozen years ago that mirrored many of the same symptoms and treatments that Sorbo reveals he endured. So when he writes about the angiogram or the dizziness, the weakness, and having to relearn things that we all kind of take for granted, like how to walk and how to see, I could really feel his pain. True Strength, My Journey from Hercules to Mere Mortal, and How Nearly Dying Saved My Life, the new book Sorbo has written about the strokes he suffered and the long road back, is a compelling read whether you are a fan of his work on Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, or Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda, or you don't even recognize one of the most beloved TV stars in the world. It's a painfully human tale of a man's struggle against himself and how he deals with a body and a life turned inside out. I heartily recommend it to you. And Kevin Sorbo, welcome to Mr. Media.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
I imagine these days it's good to be anywhere, isn't it?
It is. When something like this happens to any of us, I think it's more than a life-changing road. You've got to jump to a whole different place in your heart and your soul, and it was a battle. It was a fight.
I guess the most obvious, really, first question I have for you is how the Hades are you?
I'm doing well. I mean, it's let alone all that the 3 years it took me to really feel normal again. I've been very fortunate to keep on working. When the last two seasons of Hercules, 5 years in Andromeda, and since then I've done about 35 movies. So knock on wood, which I just did. I'm still here and still kicking, and there's some repercussions left, but overall I'm doing quite well.
I had told you before we actually started the show that I was interested to see. We're recording this late in the day, and I'm just literally have finished reading the book, and I was curious. I mean, I know these things happened several years ago, but throughout the book, literally almost to the very end, you're struggling with the issues that the strokes brought about. So I was kind of curious to see, as probably most people who've read the book and are hearing about this, how you're doing, and you look great.
Well, like I said, it was if they saw me during those first 2 years, and certainly the isolation of shooting in New Zealand certainly was a protective wall for me of letting a lot of people see what's going on. They don't have the whole paparazzi thing down there, so I was able. I've always said Hercules saved lives on television. I think he saved my life too, and because it was certainly motivation for me to keep trying to get better. And I thank Universal Studios for giving me the opportunity to keep doing the series, because it was very important to me and to my recovery to keep being part of that character and being involved in that, just going to work. It gave me purpose in my life.
Now, I want to get into the details of that, but for people who have just kind of seen the headline that
Mhm.
Hercules had these strokes, and a lot of this is just coming out. Can you kind of capsulize uh, what exactly happened, and then the kind of the symptoms? I sort of mentioned the symptoms, but I mean, what you were fighting for those 3 years?
Well, it really started to manifest itself during about the last month of season 5 on Hercules, and I was going to head back to the States to between seasons 5 and 6 to do another movie and also do some publicity on the movie I'd shot the year before called The Conqueror. And I was getting these just really achy pains, and from my shoulder all the way down to my fingers. These three fingers right here, and the ring finger or the pinky, were cold, and they were numb. I couldn't quite figure out what was wrong. And coming besides a guy that worked out every day and did all my own stunts and playing football and basketball, I was a jock. So at first I just kind of threw it off. I didn't pay attention to it. And the warning signs were certainly there, but I felt pretty indestructible, I got to say. I mean, things were riding pretty good, pretty high for me. And I got back to LA. I called my doctor in Beverly Hills, and I said, Rob, I've had these feelings, and I know you thought maybe it was an ulnar nerve when I explained to you over the phone, but I want to come in and see you. And obviously, I'm giving you a Cliff Notes version here. The book goes into bigger detail. But I went to his office, and he found a lump in my shoulder, and he said, you know what, I want to get a biopsy on that. I don't know what that is, and I kind of want to check to see what's going on. Then I went to my chiropractor, who I've been going to for 8 years.
Dr. Hank.
And during those 8 years, he had never cracked my neck because he knows I don't like my neck cracked. And I was laying on his table, my eyes were closed, and I heard a voice say, "Don't let him crack your neck." And I thought, that's weird. I opened my eyes. I said, "Did you say something to me?" He said, "No, I didn't say anything." And I said, "Well, why would I hear that voice?" Closed my eyes again. Again, do not let him crack your neck. 10 seconds later, he cracks my neck. He's boom. I sat up. I said, "Why did you do that?" And he said, "I felt like you needed it." And I said, I don't like it, And I got my car, started driving home, and boom, within 2 minutes after I got my car, I had two very loud pops in the lower part of my brain. I knew right then that something serious had happened. I mean, my vision went, it was all over the place. I felt like I was falling backwards, like I had no balance. I don't know how I managed to drive home to my fiance's house. I called her up, who I'm now married to, Sam, and she wanted to come pick me. I said, no. I was already in denial. I said, no, I'll come there, and like an idiot, I slept on it, and I woke up the next morning, had two more episodes, another one of the balance, which wiped me out, but the fourth one was my speech center. I started slurring my speech. I couldn't understand, and I looked at her, and I said, "Can you hear this?" And she went, "I have to take you to the hospital right now." We got in the car. She had to hold on to me. What had happened when I got there, it was an aneurysm. It was in my left subclavicle that exploded. Hundreds of clots down to my arms. My arm was blue. Doctors frantic trying to save the arm. They put an angiogram. It goes up through your groin into your heart, pumping Coumadin and heparin, blood thinners to, try to break everything up. I was in ICU for 8 days. Test after test, I had to go to MRIs, all that stuff. And sure enough, I had suffered 3 strokes. The fourth stroke, the one that affected my speech, disappeared within an hour, thank God. But I had a 10% loss of vision in both eyes and balance issues that took a long time to recover from. And it was, I had to drop out of the movie I was going to do, obviously, and I had to go through rehab, and I spent months, those 3.5 months I had off, just going through rehab, learning to walk again and get my balance going again. And that was just really the beginning of it. I had a vibration sound in the back of my head that didn't go away for a year. It was just, it was tough, to get back on the set of Hercules. I dropped 15 pounds of muscle that I didn't want to lose, but I couldn't lift weights anymore. And I came on the set, and it was like going to my own funeral. I mean, the crew was shocked to see how gaunt I looked, how frail I looked, and how unsteady I was walking on the set, hanging on to my makeup artist, Annie. And, the studio had to rally. They had to work around me. They had to do whatever they could with stunt casting and everything else to keep the show going. And thank God they did.
Oh, it's amazing. As you were telling the story, I was thinking about the book, about things in the book, and it seems to me that obviously, this sounds a little weird, but I mean, you're obviously the star of your own book here and your story, but your wife, who was then your fiance, I got to give that woman a tremendous amount of credit for sticking with you through. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is kind of stuff that, it scares somebody away when they're married. You weren't even married yet, and she stuck by you, and, it got a little rough at times. I give her a lot of credit.
No question. She ended up being the rock, and she was the main reason this book was even made. It was, I wouldn't have blamed her for walking away, because I didn't know what was going to happen with my life. I didn't know where I was going to go with it and how much better I was going to get. I mean, I was determined to get better, certainly, but like I said, it took 3 full years for me to finally feel like I was, normal again, for lack of a better word. I still have repercussions in it, but I was able to, as far as I'm concerned, I'm able to work full time. I've passed every physical exam that the studios have put me under. And I'm still here, but she was huge. She was huge in making sure that I kept fighting and kept going, and was very big in helping my recovery get by quicker.
I think the other person or people that deserve some credit in all this are those writers on Hercules who figured out a way to keep producing episodes with you putting in maybe 30 minutes a day, an hour, appearing at the beginning and the end. There was some pretty clever stuff that was done there to make it keep
Well,
going.
one episode was called Hercules. They turned me into a pig, so all I had to do was sit in the room and do some voiceover work. So it was they had to. They did a lot of stunt casting. We had Bruce Campbell come down, do a lot more stuff, and there was a lot of episodes where we used flashbacks and using previous footage. But they were very clever in getting the show going. And by the end of season 6, going into season 7, I was working more full days. They realized, what, they don't need me there 14 hours a day. They could get just as much out of me in a 6 to 7 to 8 hour day. So I've always said on every set of television and movies, there's always 3 or 4 hours of just wasted time. You're like, what is going on? Why are we not shooting? Just there's this wasted time of people just not doing their jobs, and it goes for everybody. And we found an easier way to sort of boom, pick up the pace and get things done in a more efficient way.
I'm going to interrupt myself for a second. If you could pull just a little bit closer to the screen, your image, it got a little softer there you go. Much better. Thank you. Yeah. Just want to make sure we have as much light on you as possible for
Sure.
the bubble gum and aluminum foil that hold together Skype. Uh, so, it's been all these years since Hercules wrapped, even since Andromeda wrapped. Why did you tell the story of what happened to you now? Why do it now?
I just felt like now is the time. I mean, I'm as busy now as I've ever been. I've shot, my gosh, I think I've shot about 9 movies in the last 2 years, and just finished one down in Texas. And during this time, I was writing the book. I was always one of those students that if you got a paper due at the beginning of the semester that was due at the end, but you got the assignment, I waited until the last 3 days to do it. So I think that kind of covers everything I'm doing right now. And it just got to a point, and the nagging from my wife that you know what, let's do this. Let's get this. I wanted to get the story out, and really I wanted this book to be something that would be motivational to people, inspirational to people, to make them realize, as you said yourself, that you went through your own health issues. We all have gone through it, or all will one day, and we all know somebody who has. And this is a book to say, as great as doctors are, as great as they saved my arm, they saved my life, because they told me, they said I wouldn't have lasted the day. They said had I not come in, I would have certainly died that day. Words you don't want to hear, and you think how close you are to it. It changes you. It changes your perspective, and you kind of realize, all you have to do is go listen to Steve Jobs, and when he gave his speech to the Stanford alumni back in 2005. When I listened to that I've heard it before, but since he passed, I listened to it again, and I felt everything he said, and everything he said made perfect sense, because all the BS in our lives, all the things we worry about, all the things that are so important, they do fall away. They fall to the side, and you don't worry anymore about what people are thinking, or what image you're portraying, or anything like that. You just say, you know what, I don't care. Here I am. I'm naked. Please make me better. Help me to get better. And that's really why I wanted to write this book. I wanted people to realize that they can do it. Doctors can only go so far. I mean, that's why I call it a practice.
Is that why they do that? I never.
That's exactly it. Same goes for lawyers. They're not always right, and they're not always wrong, but you have to find a place within yourself to harken back to the book. You have to find a place to find your own true strength and move on.
You talk a lot about Sam, both in our conversation here and in the book. One of the things I liked about the book is that periodically you'll get to the end of a chapter, and the next chapter the type is slightly different, and you realize that Sam's telling her part of the story, and where things were at that time, and it's a nice way to do it.
I told her, I said, what, I really want, and I think fans will want to know what, through your eyes, what you saw, what I was going through, and what you remember, because there are things that I don't remember as well as she does during that time, because my brain was all over the place. It was fritzing out everywhere. And through that idea, we took it a step further, and we brought in Bruce Campbell. We brought in Michael Hurst, who played Aeolus. We brought in John Mahaffey, who was our director of photography and our main camera operator. We brought in Eric Grundeman, the only other American living down there with me full-time all 7 years I was down there in New Zealand. So it was important, I think, to get their side of the story as well, I think. And I think it breaks up the story in a nice way. I didn't want this thing to be morbid. I wanted to put in some anecdotes from my rise to getting Hercules and put in some funny stories to make people sort of see a little bit more of my life than other just that little bubble of being sick.
No, I like that a lot. How did you recall, because you were going through so much at the time, how did you reconstruct a lot of these stories and things that happened? There's great detail, there's great conversation.
You know, it's easy because during those 2 years, I kept notes. I kept a diary. I kept my own sort of progress chart with no book in mind at that point. I wanted to be able to remember what I was feeling. I put a lot of things down on tape as well. I saw a psychiatrist like 4 or 5 different times. I recorded all those sessions, so I have them all on tape. And what the tape for him wasn't my idea. That was his idea. He told me that you're going to want to do this because I want you to look back on these things, guys. I want you to remember that I don't want you to fall back in the traps you were before, being an idiot and being a bozo. You brought this on yourself, which is hard to listen to something like that. But you said you were living your life like you were Hercules, and you needed a giant lightning bolt to come in there and crack the shell that you were living in and expose you to the world and let you see who you really are. And that's pretty much what it was like.
Well, now you say that, but I mean, if this hadn't happened to you, I mean, it's not like there were stories out there or gossip about, oh, Kevin Sorbo, he's a giant meathead, or he's got this big swelled head and he's doing this and he's doing that. I mean, it's not like you had a bad rep or a bad rap on you, but
no, I mean, I think I'm a good guy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, pretty much everybody came down. I mean, I got letters from all the co-stars coming down saying they never had a better experience than working on my show. The crew, the cat, and whenever you're the number one person on the call sheet for any show, it's really up to you to set the tone in that show. And I've been on shows as guest stars when the lead actors were kind of jerks. And I said, why do you want to work 12, 14 hours a day and be on a set where people hate you? Why is that something that's comfortable or fun? It's no fun for anybody. And, I think just where I grew up is in Minnesota. I grew up in a very small town. My parents instilled really good values in me and good morals and a hard work ethic. So I've always had that inside of me. But I think really what it did for me was I wasn't living a bad life. I was living in too hard of a life. I mean, for those first 5 years on the show, I was getting 4 hours of sleep a night. That's insane. I was working 18 hours door to door, including the drive and the drive back, and pumping weights 2 hours a day every single day. First 2 seasons, we worked 6 days a week. Sundays became non-existent to me. It just became a day, I just felt like I never left the set. So I think honest to God, I think when I heard that voice, I believe that was God. I believe, why else would I get that warning? Why else would there be somebody saying, don't let him crack your neck, to a guy that never cracked my neck?
Right.
And when I didn't listen to it, he gave me a little slap on the shoulder in a very rude way, in a very harsh way, and woke me up. And it wasn't that I was like a selfish person or something, but it made me realize there's more to my life than just worrying about busting my butt on a TV show, which I loved. I'm not going to take anything away from it because I know it brought a lot of joy to people around the world. And I've had people tell me it saved their lives. It made them look at life differently. And I was just at this New York Comic-Con here recently, and I had people come up to me almost in tears saying, I watched this show every day with my father who passed away. I watched this show every day with my grandfather. This is our Saturday together. And there were very real emotions coming out of these people. And it's amazing how television and movies can touch us that way. It's a wonderful experience.
Well, let's take a quick break. This is Bob Andelman, and you're listening to and hopefully watching the Mr. Media interview with actor Kevin Sorbo, star of Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, and Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda. His new memoir, True Strength. And we'll be right back. All right.
Hi, this is Guy Kawasaki. You're listening to Mr. Media, you poor slob.
Hey folks, you can hear Mr. Media while on the go now with Stitcher Smart Radio. Stitcher is a free news and talk mobile app available for your smartphone, whether you use an iPhone, iPod Touch, Android, BlackBerry Curve, or Palm Pre. And when you download Stitcher to hear Mr. Media today, you have a chance to win some real money. Downloading is quick and easy. Just find Stitcher in your smartphone's app store. Download it, it's free, takes seconds. Then, during registration, hit the promo code box and enter Mr. Media, that's MR Media, to get automatically entered to win $100. The latest episode of Mr. Media will be waiting for you in Stitcher's favorites right on your phone. You'll get access to lots of other amazing shows too, always available to you on demand, no syncing. Some of my favorites include WTF with Mark Maron, Plus One Per Diem with Kevin Smith, and The Nerdist with Chris Hardwick. It's all free and all instant to you on Stitcher Smart Radio. And don't forget to win the money. Enter promo code Mr. Media, MR Media, when you register. And thanks for listening. This is Bob Andelman, and you're listening to and hopefully watching the Mr. Media interview with actor Kevin Sorbo, star of Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, and Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda. His new memoir is True Strength, My Journey from Hercules to Mere Mortal, and How Nearly Dying Saved My Life. Kevin, in this part of the interview, I'd kind of like to talk to you more about your famous roles, and I'd never heard the Superman story before. That was it's great in the telling.
I have.
Yeah, I'm sure, and it was probably it was probably painful to tell, even though you wound up probably getting the better end of the stick in the end. But it's
true. It was painful.
So you went and just for people who don't know what I'm talking about, you when they were casting Lois and Clark, I guess the New Adventures of Superman. The final for the male lead, it came down at the end to you and Dean Cain, and they told you that you had the role, and they took it back.
Hollywood is tough enough the way it is. It's tough to get a job out there. I mean, they call it the city of angels. It's really the city of broken dreams, and you hear a lot of that in the rock and roll songs. People talking about that because people come out there and you see the casualties all over Hollywood Boulevard. Trust me. When I got out there and I look at the number of guys that I used to go up against for jobs, and back in the 80s, back in the late 80s, 90% of them are now gone. They're selling real estate cars. They were doing whatever they are. It's a very tough place, and the whole city is set up for you to be a failure. The whole industry of Hollywood, it's set up. It's the process of elimination. Every time you walk into a room, they're not looking at you going, boy, I hope this guy's good. They're looking at you and going, what don't I like about this person? Every actor, no matter what level of success, can tell you the same story of the horrors of auditioning for something. And when I finally got as far as I did on Lois and Clark, when it got down to Dean Cain and myself, and Dean's a great guy, he's a friend to this day. When I left, at that time it was on the Warner Brothers lot, it was Lorimar, which isn't around anymore. And at the time, Les Moonves was the president of that company before he moved over to CBS. I left the reading, and I didn't have a cell phone then. They were around, but they were those big bulky suckers back in the early 90s. I got my pager went off, and I saw that was Barb Miller from Lorimar, who was the head of casting there. And they were also doing Friends at the time. Friends was being cast at that time. And I pulled over, and I got on a payphone, which are hard to find nowadays. And she said, "You got the job." I went nuts. I called my manager, agent. Boy, we went crazy. We went out and celebrated, went crazy that night. And my first lead in a network show. And then I went back to my Santa Monica apartment, and the next morning I got a phone call, and they said, "You know what, we're going to go with Dean Cain. I feel so bad, Kevin. I feel so bad." You go from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows in less than 12 hours. It was devastating. And I handled it the way I normally do. I went to the gym and worked out, and then rode my bike for about 40 miles along the Strand, all the way down to Hermosa Beach and back up the Pacific Palisades. It was devastating, and yet, true enough, about 5 months later, I got Hercules, and Hercules went for we got 7 seasons out of it, and they got canned after 3 seasons, and we became the most watched show in the world. So take that, take that, ABC. No, but you know what? It is weird how things work out. You never know what's going to get picked up. I did a pilot for ABC right after. Speaking of ABC again. Right after Andromeda finished. It was a half-hour comedy written by Barry Kemp. And people may not know his name, but they know his work. He did head writer on Taxi. He created the Bob Newhart series, the second one in the mountains, and he created Coach, which you may have heard of. Only went 9 years, and he wrote an amazing pilot. And even though we tested #1 in all their test markets of their 28 new shows, they don't pick up the series. It's shocking to me. We should be in season 6 right now. That it'd be one of the top sitcoms on TV. There's no doubt in my mind. But you cannot figure out why these people do pick up what they do pick up. because you already see the fall season right now. You already see shows
Yep.
being canceled
Yep.
after 2 or 3 or 4 episodes, gone.
Well, you know what I was my first thought about after reading that story in the book about you and Dean Cain was I could have wound up hating you for a couple of years for being that close to Teri Hatcher, and man,
It wasn't that bad. A good-looking lady. But you
yeah.
know what? I got a hot co-star every 2 weeks on Hercules. So I think I got the better end of that deal
and
too.
you married yours eventually.
I did. I
Yeah,
did.
so it worked out okay. And really, like you said, I mean, their show got canceled after a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yours went on. You had, I gather, some serious profit participation by the end in that. It worked out okay.
Actually worked okay for the producers. I never got my back end on the deal.
Are
So
you
you can talk.
kidding?
No. You know what it is? I'm very blunt about it here because I'm not shy about talking about studios that way. A back end deal for an actor is really a different way of saying we're going to give it to you in the back end.
I'm so
They
sorry.
are certainly, and it's a phrase coined within Hollywood. It's called creative accounting.
Hmm.
If you believe the studios of Hollywood, they would let you believe that nothing that they do makes money.
Tell
I talked I talked to James Garner about it while I was in my lawsuit with Universal, and he said it took him 13 years to get his back end on Rockford because apparently Rockford didn't make any money.
yeah, right.
And David Duchovny, X-Files made no money either. But when they wanted to make a motion picture with him, he had him.
He made them pay up front.
They
Well,
had to pay his back end. He said, "Well, then go get somebody else to do the role." You can't get somebody else to do the role. It had to be him.
well, tell our friend Lissa to cover her ears while I say this, but in the book industry, they use the same creative accounting. So, just
Yeah.
you heard it here. Um,
But yeah, and it's amazing. It's amazing. I remember my entertainment lawyer saying, "Well, that's just the way it is in Hollywood." And I said, "Why? Why can't they just be honest?"
Mhm.
But honesty isn't something that's really on the minds of anybody who works for a studio.
In the book, besides Dr. Hank, the chiropractor, the one other person I think throughout the whole book, the only other person I think in the whole book who comes off badly or that you clearly have some animosity for is the executive producer from Hercules, Rob Tapert. Is that is that the first time that you've been publicly you've kind of gone across publicly how you
Well,
felt about him?
Rob. I don't want to take away from how brilliant Rob is. Rob is a very bright guy, and he had a lot to do with keeping that show on the air before I got sick, and a lot to do with it keeping it on after I got sick. And to his credit, he said, "Let's take care of Kevin. Let's protect him." But I mean, let's face it. They had a lot. They wanted their back end, and I had the same contract that Sam Raimi and Rob Tapert had. They got paid. I didn't get paid. So go figure that one out. What it comes down to is they know they needed them more than the studio said. We're gonna rely on Sam Raimi more than we're relying on Kevin Sorbo for our future projects. So Rob had a common denominator. He didn't get along with a lot of people, but. He's a tough personality, but you know what? He's a brilliant guy, and he really is. He's a smart guy, and I give him a lot of kudos. I don't really blast him in the book, and I don't really blast
No,
my
no,
my
but
chiropractor either. There's a number of things going back to the chiropractic maneuver he did on me. Some neurologists think that crack sent the blood clots into my brain.
mhm.
I believe it did too, because the timing of it was too unusual. Others believe that there was something else that caused it, which made me more nervous about, what do you mean there's something else waiting to flow to my body? So, I'm not going to go after, there is proof that a chiropractic maneuver like that has caused strokes in people before. So it's out there. It's very rare. And with Rob, it's unfortunate. I was truthful about what happened when we spun up Xena in season 3. There would have been no Xena without Hercules being successful. It never would have happened. And Lucy, married Rob, and part of me says I totally understand. That's my wife. I'm going to take care of her more than you, and he did.
Well, plus
But Lucy, Xena never beat us in the ratings. We were the #1 show in America the whole time. They did very well. They had a huge following, but it became a different following. We were more of like a family show. That show did become much darker and a little more sinister in the way. They put the comedy in there, there's no question, but she was killing people all the episodes. I never killed anybody.
Well, plus,
And
in fairness, I have to say, and I don't mean to hurt your feelings, but having now seen her in Spartacus, completely,
pretty much,
I
pretty
kind,
much soft porn, you mean?
yeah, I mean, I kind of see, why he may have chosen her over you in the long run. I mean,
Oh yeah, I mean, if you're heterosexual like Robert, I am. I mean, I totally get it.
yeah.
So
but
Uh,
I
yeah,
understand.
I'm actually sort of surprised she kind of went that road to show herself that way. But hey, you know, it is soft porn meets 300. That's what Spartacus is.
You know what? I didn't know anything about Spartacus, and there's a guy on the internet called Mr. Skin. It's mrskin.com. He,
Oh, and
he
shows.
he comes on occasionally on the show, and he was telling me that he picked as I don't know, something of the year for Spartacus, and I said, "What are you talking about?" I mean, it's on like the smallest cable, pay cable. I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Go check it out, you'll see." And I was like, "Oh my God,
Oh yeah,
that's
I
who would
know.
have ever guessed that she would do something like that?" Anyway, last question. I got to ask you. You worked
Sure.
with uh, uh, Bruce Campbell many
Mm.
years. Yeah, I mean, and he makes a contribution to the book. You obviously like him a lot. I get the sense that wherever this guy goes, that men and women alike cannot resist this man's charisma. That I
Yeah.
mean, all the way back to the Evil Dead movies, all the way forward to Burn Notice. What is it about this guy? What's so different about him?
You know, Bruce was in that camp with Ramey and Tapert. They're all Michigan boys. They all, grew up together. They all started making movies together when they're young. And Bruce was the one, they were all like, okay, you're the actor, you're the producer, you're the director. I mean, there's all this kind of stuff going on between the three of them. Bruce is just an easygoing guy. He's easy to get to know. We had a blast in the show. He cut his teeth as a director on Hercules. And he's on Burn Notice now. We've been trying to work out a time schedule for me to get on that show, and the guests are on there. So hopefully that'll happen one day.
Great, that'd be great.
He was my golf buddy down there when he came down there. He directed a number of them. He's guest starred in more of them, and we just had a blast. He's a cool guy, and he speaks well, and he's smart, and it's just a lot of fun to work with somebody like that. It's fun to be. It's very infectious personality.
All right. I get that. I definitely get that. It's good to hear you're trying to work out something to get on Burn Notice.
No, good show. It's a
Yeah,
fun.
I think that'd be fun. All right, listen, folks. You can find actor Kevin Sorbo's inspiring memoir, True Strength, in great bookstores everywhere, or you can order it right now at a great price at mrmedia.com, mrmedia.com. Kevin, people find you website, Twitter, Facebook? Are you doing any of that stuff?
I would love people to go to kevinsorbo.net. And you can check me out there. On Twitter, I'm at KSorbs. Sorbs was my nickname growing up, and it stayed with me through all my high school and college buddies, so it's at KSORBS.
Hmm.
And then on Facebook, it's the official fan page of Kevin Sorbo. There's a lot of people that are pretending to be me, so just look for the official one, and that would be me.
I didn't realize you had heard that I was out pretending to be you. I've done my best to, kind of look the part. I do wear a wig, though, when I do it, just so folks know.
Awesome. Well, as long as you got that going, that's good.
All right. Kevin Sorbo, thank you so much for the book. I really enjoyed the book and for joining us on Mr. Media today.
My pleasure. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.